This week in the economy, it's budget week again, and everybody is speculating on where the minister might go in the so-called Budget 2.0. In the first round, we have to remember that the budget was rejected on the face of the 2 percentage point increase in the VAT rate that the minister wanted. All of this should be seen within the context of the medium-term expenditure framework. So the minister already updated his spending plans last year in the mini-budget. And at that stage, he didn't budget for a real increase in spending. Increase would have been flat in the next 3 years. But in the first round of this year's budget, he budgeted for an additional 178 billion rand, around there, and he needed a way to finance that. That's where the 2 percentage point VAT rate increase proposal came from. He has a few options at the moment. He can either borrow more money, he can cut spending and use that money to finance his new spending plans, or he can try and raise other taxes. Now, those spending plans are not something that he can easily abandon. It's the COVID SRD, 370 rands per month grant that's he's budgeting for. He only budgeted for a 4.5% salary increase for government employees, but in the end they agreed on 5.5 with the unions, so he has to find the difference. He's also thinking about so-called frontline services. You frequently read about those doctors in the Western Cape that can't find jobs, or those teachers in KZN that's going to be fired soon. So those frontline services he needs to find some money for. He can't really borrow more, simply because credit rating agencies and the buyers of our bonds expect him to stabilize our debt to GDP ratio. So borrowing more will really be a bad signal to those investors that he's not serious about fiscal consolidation. I expect that he's going to try and find a mix of spending cuts and additional taxes, and not try and borrow more money. Spending cuts are tricky. Regular people say, well, that's easy. You can just reduce the size of the cabinet, fire the deputy ministers, and maybe close the post office while you're busy. But what is really needed is a proper review of spending. We don't need a lawnmower cutting through spending evenly. We need to critically look at different programs, departments, entities, and figure out what is important for economic growth and development, and what can we sensibly close down and use that money for these frontline services, COVID SRD grants, etc. But that would take time, and it would also take a lot of political leadership. We're seeing the impact of this in the US, where the Department of Government Efficiency, so-called DOGE, is really going through the US budget line by line and causing a lot of disruption. So that's not going to help us tomorrow. What's left is that the government can try and find some mix of tax increases, and there are many options on the table. Some are quite radical, the proposal for a 25% tax on luxury goods, or a 0.5 percentage point tax on financial transactions. Now, those are quite out there. The more normal ones would be to say, let's not increase VAT by 2 percentage points, but what about 1 percentage point in combination with something like an increase in the fuel levy, some spending cuts, and that would give us the 60 billion the minister needs. The politics of all of this is going to be the interesting part of tomorrow afternoon. The opposition party, specifically the DA, vowed that they are opposed to any tax increases. So if they're able to step back on those and allow some tax increases in combination with spending cuts and maybe promises for other steps of fiscal consolidation, we'll have to wait and see what happens. And I think the minister is really presenting the most exciting budget in many years. Stay tuned. We'll talk more about it next time.